you all to our latest Novedge webinar episode. In this week's episode, 3D light renderings with Vectorworks Spotlight, and in this webinar we'll cover the powerful functions and tools the Vectorworks Spotlight 2014 offers designers as they take an idea from the conceptual to the final stage of execution. Presenting this webinar is Stephen Jones, a New York-based professional theatrical lighting designer and professor of drama at Vassar College, and his work can be seen in regional theater, Shakespeare Festival, Ballet, and all over the country. Before we get going, here's an overview of what we do in Novedge. Novedge is one of the largest online design software stores. We offer a huge assortment of software solutions that cater to virtually every designer's need. Put us to the test and come visit our webpage at novedge.com. And to find more about Stephen and his outstanding work, please visit his own website at stephensjonesdesigns.com. Everything will be illuminated. For more rewards and specials on our part, make sure to check the Novedge blog. You can keep up with the latest software updates and enjoy inspiring interviews. In fact, we even interviewed today's presenter, Stephen Jones, the man himself. Find the interview on the blog and don't forget to look for us on Facebook, Google+, and Twitter. Coming up next week, a webinar with Solid Edge Superior Sheet Metal Design. Sheet metal design is a core capability of Solid Edge ST6 Foundation, with support for the entire design through fabrication process. Solid Edge delivers the most productive sheet metal CAD package available. Last but not least, today's presentation is free and is being recorded live. If you want to re-watch this or any webinar episode, you can find it on YouTube and Vimeo channel. Just search for Novedge. And now, let me pass the baton to Stephen. Are you ready, Stephen?
I am.
Okay, I'm going to make you the presenter, and you should be able to see Stephen's screen in a few seconds. And what I'm leaving you saying light, camera, action.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much, or thank everybody for attending the webinar. Today we're going to be talking about ways to render with light using my favorite software, Vectorworks Spotlight 2014. I thought it would be interesting to talk about two different ways in which I use the light rendering tools in Vectorworks to help communicate the design ideas and concepts to the collaborative teams that I work with. Excuse me. The first part of this webinar is strictly based in the conceptual world. We're going to look at various lighting options such as indirect light, environmental lighting, various lighting tool sets, as well as ways to convert three-dimensional objects into soft area lights to help us control contrast and really create some wonderful renderings. Now, these are tools that I use when I'm strictly in conceptual mode. They're fantastic for making things look beautiful and really getting ideas across. However, they're not necessarily practical for real-world execution in creating lighting inventories, shop orders, figuring out things like that. The second part of the webinar today is about that very thing, which is how to take, from an entertainment standpoint, how to use the theatrical lighting library features that Vectorworks provides to figure out things such as photometrics and beam angles, how to create lighting plots, as well as how to generate all the paperwork that is useful to those that will be ordering, installing the fixtures, focusing, and doing all of those things. The fun thing about Vectorworks that I've discovered is for the second half of this webinar, you're going to see that we can get all of the business end of things done, but we can also play with rendering with light at the same time. So we're going to get some real feedback, computer simulated feedback on what our ideas will be. I should note at this point, excuse me, that I have a frog in my throat. No, I should note at this point that there are several different ways to achieve successful renderings. I've discovered through various wonderful books written about Vectorworks, talking with other Vectorworks users, that After having a basic understanding of the software, the more I let my imagination play in the software, the more I tend to discover. This is to say that in this next handful of minutes that we're sitting down together, you're going to discover how I do the process. Hopefully, what you'll do is learn something new from this, take it, run with it, discover new and more innovative ways to streamline your workflows. Then I can tune into your webinar and learn something new from you. But in the meantime, I hope you find this webinar very, very helpful. We're going to start with the basics. Excuse me. And what you're seeing right now is a 30 by 30 room that I've created for the purpose of conceptualizing lighting. And just to go over a few basic things in terms of how I tend to work, I'm a big fan of layers, using layers for every object that I create in my workspace. So let me just demonstrate what I'm talking about here. Coming up here to the layers menu, you can see that I have scenery and a centerline layer and lighting fixtures. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but every item that we're going to be seeing is actually on a layer. For this half of the webinar, we're going to consider the camera, ceiling, beams, walls, floors, and then the concept lighting layer. What I've discovered excuse me, is that in dividing things up into layers, it really allows me to control what I want to see and when I want to see it. Now, in the navigation bar, here you go. In the navigation bar right here, this gives me quick access to all of my layers. It allows me to turn things on and off, even take them to gray if I need to. And if you don't see this in your Vectorworks window automatically popping up, you can find it under the window, then you go palettes, and you can come to the navigation, and voila, it will pop up. Excuse me. So, let's look at what we have here. In plan view, excuse me, what you're seeing again is a room that's been divided up, and actually let me turn off the ceiling and the beams layer here. You can see that we actually have a room with 2 windows in it and a separating wall here. The thing that I've added are 2 cameras that are going to allow us to see inside the room. Now, the camera tool is located in the visualization option here. By clicking here, then you can simply go to RenderWorks Camera, and you can drop the camera anywhere in the document that you want or inside this room. So, for example, the start point of the camera will be here. Then I can drag my mouse, or just click rather, and then click again to terminate, and we have a camera that pops up. Just like everything else in Vectorworks, under the Object Info palette, we have options that allow us to modify the camera view and perspective. So, for example, what you're seeing here is the option for our camera height, 5 feet, our look to height. We can come down to the projection, whether it's orthogonal perspective, wireframe mode. The list goes on, and you guys can read that on your own. We don't really need that camera, so we'll do away with that. To access the camera, what we're going to do is simply double-click on the camera, and it gives us a perspective of the room. So coming to our render pull-down menu here, we're going to go to OpenGL for just quick rendering purposes. Actually, you know what? Let's go to Fast Quality RenderWorks. And we can see that we have, excuse me, a view of the inside of the room. Now, this doesn't look very realistic. We have the suggestion of shading with the various walls, and we see a highlighted wall here. We see some tonality, but this rendering doesn't really look what I would consider presentable. This is where we're going to start with the idea of how to use the tools that Vectorworks has to make quality renderings, really beautiful renderings in the end. Excuse me, and by the end of this, hopefully you'll think this looks as good as it can. So to start with, we're going to actually go back to plan view, and I'm going to start with our first lighting option. Under the tool sets, under light, we're going to consider the point light tool, which is this one right here. Now, the point light tool is simply just a bare bulb that we're going to hang in space inside this room. So by clicking it, and then we'll place it relatively close to the wall. So we've just dropped our light in. Excuse me. Now remember, we want to remember that we're working in 3D, so we need to set Z heights for everything. So again, in the Object Info palette, we can set the Z height. We'll set this at, let's say, 12 feet. We'll come back, and we'll look in the room. We see our light here, and let's go ahead and go to Fast Quality RenderWorks. Starting to look a little bit better, isn't it? Now, this gives us a good place to start. Notice that as soon as we drop the light into our document, that default shading, highlight, and shadow option that Vectorworks gave us previously is no more. Vectorworks will default to whatever light is turned on in your document or in your workspace. So we see that we have this light that's illuminating the room. And it's pretty nice. We've got a shadow here. We see shadows that are taking place on the beams here. We can see a little something that feels relatively natural. But we can make it better. What we're going to do is highlight the point light, and we're going to look at a few options here. So we see now that we have the cast shadow option, and when I deselect it, we go back to something that looks a little more plain. So we're going to click back on the cast shadow. What I've discovered is I love the look of the soft shadows. So we're going to select that as well. What I find that it does is it gives a nice, well, softness to the shadows when appropriate. It still can maintain that hard edge, but as we distance ourselves from the light source, things become a little softer, as you can see in this area here. We also have the option under the Object Info palette for lit fog. We'll get into that a little bit later when we go into the theatrical mode. We have the option for the Use Emitter. We're going to go ahead and click that. Here we see that the pull-down menu actually expands. We have the option for a brightness value. We can measure in units of lumens or candles. We can also adjust how bright the light is going to be. The thing that I love about this, though, is we can adjust the color temperature. So we can go to something like a 3400. We can amp it up if we want to, and you can play within that. It really, again, gives us the flexibility to be as precise as we need to be. The next thing we're going to do is consider the distance fall off option or pull down menu. Now this is where we really start to get into the ability to create something that looks very naturalistic. So by clicking this, we have two options. We have the smooth option. Instantly we see that this starts to emulate real world settings when we're looking at the light source, just with the smooth. Then we can go to realistic, which is what I tend to default to. These options that we see here are all options that are available on all the lighting fixtures that we're going to consider in the conceptual mode. Now the other thing that we're going to look at in terms of really getting this image to render well is the idea of indirect lighting. Going to the View option under Lighting, Set Lighting Options, here we can actually play with how light reacts in the room itself. Now the indirect lighting mode, or pull-down menu right now, you see is set to none. We have a few options within that. We have the exterior one bounce, and I'll go ahead and show this to you now. This is an option that I use primarily for exterior renderings. Oops, no, I don't want to say that. Exterior renderings when I want to emphasize a strong key lighting source, such as the sun or the moon. Another option we have is the normal two bounces. And as my computer renders, what you're seeing is it's increasing the amount of the surfaces and allowing light to bounce off of the surfaces more. It's adding an element, a stronger element of realism to our rendering. We've gone, if you remember, from something that looks representative but very cartoonish, now to something that is really looking pretty natural. The last option that we have under lighting, set lighting options, is the interior 4 bounces. And as my computer renders that out, we can see that now the light is bouncing off of every surface, and really I think this is one of the most realistic options that we have. Excuse me. So the normal 2 bounce I find is great for most renderings that I do. If there are not a lot of vertical surfaces to worry about, I find that it gives great depth to the image and to the scenes that I'm using, especially if I'm supplementing with other lighting fixtures. The interior 4 bounce is definitely the highest quality interior option that I've, to my knowledge. Something to note though, each of these options increases the rendering quality, but it also really taxes your computer or slows down your computer's performance, and it's very, very noticeable if you have an older computer. It can take a long time to render something if you have multiple lighting sources and you're using the interior 4 bounce. So just a word of caution there. If you have a very elaborate rendering that you're going to do and you use the interior 4 bounce, you may want to go get a cup of coffee or go get dinner or something like that if you have an older computer. So we're going to leave it here for now, and we're going to go back under lighting, set lighting options, and we're going to consider a few more things here. The next option is going to be the ambient info and the ambient light for this rendering. Now what the ambient light does is it fills in all the shadows in our document or in our room here. So by clicking it on, and we'll adjust the brightness to, let's say, 45. And we'll change the color, let's make it red or pink. And as it re-renders, you're going to see that it starts to fill in all the shadows. Now the challenge that I've discovered here is whenever I'm using this option, which I honestly don't use that often, it tends to wash things out. So I really have to scale it back, dial it back quite a bit. For example, if I were to use this option here, I probably would bring it up to something like 15%. Just, if you can see that, just so you get a little bit of warmth and depth in the shadows rather than overpowering the entire environment. The other option that we're going to look at, again, under lighting, set lighting options, we're going to get used to saying that over and over again, or at least I am. We're going to turn this off, is the option for, we're going to skip over the emitter options and we're going to look at the environmental lighting. Now this I think is a great tool to use. The HDRI, which stands for High Dynamic Range Image, is using these HDRI presets that Vectorworks comes with to give you the lighting effect associated with the selected preset. Now that's kind of a mouthful. What do I mean by this? What I mean is if we select from selected background and then adjust the pull-down menu, we can, let's go to, what's a good one here? We'll say Sky Sunrise. We can create the illusion or give the effect of a sunrise coming from a sunrise into the room itself. Now, this I find is a better way to fill the shadows of than the ambient light tool. Hopefully this makes sense. If it doesn't, bear with me. A little bit later on in this presentation, it'll make even more sense. So essentially what you're seeing now in the little bit of blue and the hazing that's going on around the room is the effect or the light that would be presented coming through the window from the particular preset that you've selected. Let's do one more. Set lighting options. My favorite is probably the sunset. And as that renders out, in order to see this more effectively, we're actually going to take down our light source. Let's take it down to about there. And as it re-renders, what you're starting to see now, again, is the effect of the light coming through the window. Now, of course, if I made the windows bigger, then we would get more of that effect coming through. Just like you would in your home, if you turned all the lights out and had the blinds opened up, you'd see the effect of this light coming through. Again, I find that it really gives a nice fill to all of the shadows and gives some beautiful depth. And as you can see, you have a ton of different presets that you can play with. We're not going to go through all of these right now. Now, the other exciting thing about this is the fact that it's called High Dynamic Range Image. The image portion of that means that we can actually assign an image that will associate itself with the actual lights, or the light that we're playing with right now. Now, to do that, let me demonstrate. We're going to end up putting a little image outside this window here. We can go to the layer option. We're going to go to camera, and we're going to select edit. Now, we want to select a background that is fitting for the light surface, or for the light that we're playing with at the moment. So we can go to Renderworks background. Right now we see there's none. We can go to sunset, HDRI sky sunset, click OK out of that, and as my computer re-renders, my computer's running a little slow today. As the computer renders, we can see that we actually have in the background the sky, or the illusion of sky, that is supporting the lighting that we have inside of our room. To help put this in perspective, what we're seeing outside of the actual room itself is the effect of, in effect, we're seeing outside of the room, and we're seeing the light source that is trying to penetrate into the space itself. So hopefully that makes sense, and if it doesn't, please feel free to ask questions at the end, and I'd be happy to elaborate on that. So getting back to the idea of completing this rendering, and we'll go back to fast quality RenderWorks. And just so you know, I normally would do a final quality RenderWorks, especially for presentational purposes, but for time and the fact that my computer's being a little fussy today, I'm just using the fast quality RenderWorks for now. So just keep that in mind. Excuse me. So another option that we have is under our light menu, we have the option for the spotlight. Now, as an entertainment designer, I will say this. There are other options that can achieve the same effect or even greater effect. What I'm about to do is recreate the idea of sunlight coming through the window. We could certainly use the Heliodon tool, or we could actually use the sun tool. However, as an entertainment designer, I find that I need more control over the tools that I use than the Heliodon or the sun will allow. I may need to pull in the focus of something, make it much tighter, therefore I'm using these tools. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm actually going to get out of, where did we go? I'm going to get out of this option here. I'm going to go back to plan view, and I'm going to put some light coming through yonder window here. Going with light, and to do that I'm going to use the spotlight tool. So selecting the spotlight tool, giving my start position, remembering that it needs a Z height, an elevation. I'm going to put it at 20 feet. Now this is in plan view. I still am going to need to adjust the tilt. So I need to go to a front view, and as you can see it's shooting over the room. So I can come over to my object info browser and I can adjust the tilt down so that it's actually pointing into the room itself. Now this is a great opportunity actually for me to show you something else about this particular fixture.
Stephen, can I interrupt you for a second? Two things. Could you please speak constantly in front of your microphone, because your voice comes and goes, if it's possible. Okay. I don't know if it's you or if it's the microphone. And number two, somebody's asking if you could leave the dialog box open longer so they can see what you're clicking, if that's possible.
Sure, I'll do my best.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Sorry if the sound quality isn't great, guys. That might have to do with my computer as well. So let's see here, where was I? Okay, so I'll try and leave the dialog boxes open a little bit longer as well. So getting back to the idea of the spotlight itself, we've placed the spotlight into position. I'm going to go to a front view. Actually, I'm going to go to my 3D view here. What I want to show you is another feature in terms of that deals with how we modify a lighting fixture. So at the moment, what we're seeing is the beam and the field angle of our lighting fixture that's pointing through the room itself. And we'll get into what that looks like in the room in a moment. If we come over to the Object Info palette, what we see is we have the same features that we have with the other lighting fixtures: soft shadow, lit fog, use emitter. The thing that we're interested in, not is distance fall off, but we're interested in adjusting the spread in the beam, okay, the field angle and the beam angle. Notice that if I adjust the field angle and bring it in to match the beam angle, as my computer re-renders, I get a much harder edged fixture, or much harder edged beam than I do if I open this back up again. So what this does, what this gives us, is the option of adjusting the beam spread as well as adjusting the overall focus of the lighting fixture itself. Hopefully that makes some sense. Going back to the inside the room, we're going to go ahead and look at the camera angle. And we'll go through to Fast Quality RenderWorks. Again, just so that I can leave this open a little bit longer so that we all see it. Oops, got to wait for my computer to render here. So Fast Quality RenderWorks, under the teapot here, we have options for wireframe, sketch, hidden line, etc., etc. I'm going to the Fast Quality RenderWorks. Again, I would normally go to Final Quality RenderWorks, which is a higher level of resolution, but because of my computer. So now we can see that we have our lighting fixture and we see the effect of it coming through the window. I can click on it in here, and I'm actually going to take down the intensity to, let's make it 40%. Excuse me. So here now we're seeing the effect of the light coming through the window from our fake sun, so to speak, and we see the shadows taking place here. We also see our light source here, which is our hanging light bulb, but we also see that our shadows have been filled in very nicely using the the high dynamic range image and the light coming from it. So our rendering actually is really starting to come around quite nicely, but we can still do more. Okay. Excuse me. What we can do, let's go ahead and play with the idea of creating a custom light source. Now this is one of the things that I find really fun, and I have to confess it's something I've just gotten into, I would say in the past 6 months or so, something I was unaware we could do with this software. What we want to do, actually I should back up. What I want to do is provide, we're going to go back to Fast Quality RenderWorks here. Wait for it, it's coming. What I want to do is provide a little bit of glow just around, just from behind this wall here, to give the illusion that there's a light source, maybe even a hallway from behind there, okay? Now, we could do this with a point light, we could do this with other different types of light sources, but I think this is a really flexible, this different way is a flexible way to do this. So we're going to start by turning off on our navigation window here. We're going to turn off the ceiling, we're going to turn off the beams for the moment, and we're actually going to create our own custom lighting source that's going to give us soft area lighting. Now this applies to any three-dimensional object that you can apply textures to. I should really point that out. I'm going to just use a rectangle. So I'm going to grab a rectangle and I'm just going to randomly give it some size. I'm going to extrude it, and I'm going to extrude it to 8 feet. Now, I tend to use a lot of shortcuts. If you're a Mac user, to extrude, it's just Command-E, and that pulls up the extrude dialog box. To be honest with you, to extrude it another way, I believe you go to Modify. I've done this for so long, I confess. Yeah, there you go. We go under Model, and you can click the extrude there, okay? So 8 feet, we're going to click OK. And if we do our flyover tool, we can see that we have a shape. Excuse me, going back to plan view, now we're actually ready to assign a texture to this. But before we do that, what we need to do is actually build the texture. Now the texture is actually going to be the light source itself. Check this out. By right-clicking in our resource browser, new resources, we're going to go to Renderworks texture. We get a dialog box that pops up. So again, just so that we're clear on that, if we right-click in the resource browser, new resource, okay, and this happens to be Clybourne Park webinar, but new resource in whatever your document you're working in, then you would go to Renderworks texture. Your dialog box pops up. Now, for this, I'm going to type in Hall, and we're going to skip over color. This is the texture name. We're going to skip over color. We'll get to that in a little bit. And we're going to go to reflectivity. Here we're going to select glow. You probably already see where I'm going with this. We can select the edit feature, and we can see that we can adjust the brightness of the glow. We can ask the glow to emit light and do all these other things. For now, we're just going to leave it as is. We're happy with this. So again, I named it, skipped over color for now, went to reflectivity, selected glow, and then I'm going to click OK. Now in my resource browser under Render Textures, I see that Hall is here. By clicking on the object that I want to become this custom lighting fixture, in the Object Info palette, I can select the Render option, make sure that under Part, I have Overall, okay, the overall class texture. Then under Texture, I can adjust down to Hall. I've now just turned this into a custom lighting fixture. To see the results, we'll turn everything else back on. And we'll give it a render. Here it comes. So you can see that we're starting to see a little bit of that glow happening from behind the wall there. Now I may want to adjust this, bump this up just a little bit to give it a little more flair. To do so, I don't need to do much. All I need to do is go back to the resource browser, to the resource, which is Hall, right-click, select Edit. Now I can come back in and I can adjust things. So for example, under reflectivity, which we've selected glow, I can click on the edit and I can bump the intensity up. Let's make it 150. Maybe I want to change the color. Here I can go to, under color, the pull-down menu that says color, then edit. And my wife loves lavender, so let's go with a lavender color. And then I can click OK. And as my computer re-renders, we see that we start to get this really beautiful glow that's taking place. Now to finish off this portion of the rendering, let's go ahead and change the color of the outside light. Let's make this, and notice I'm doing this by, even in this camera view window, I can still, as you notice, grab objects. So I've highlighted this particular light under color. Let's make it a salmon color. How's that? And there we go. All right, that looks a little bit like it's from Mars, but you can start to get the idea. these are some of the things that I think work really well, again, in the conceptual side of working with Vectorworks. Now, to just finish off this rendering, we're going to add a few more finishing touches so that it really pops and has a little more pizzazz. I'm going to take the beams, and under the Object Info palette, under Render, I'm going to assign a texture to these. So under Texture, and let's do the wood. And as my computer re-renders. And then let's also do the floor as well. And under floor, we want to make sure that we have the top part of the floor under the part selection here. And we'll make this wood as well. And there we go. Okay, so that red coming through the window doesn't look great, but you start to get the idea of what you can do. We've taken really a white model with very bland, plain lighting that made the room look very cartoony, and using some of the tools that Vectorworks has in its libraries, we've turned it into, I think, something that's a pretty successful rendering. The more you play with this again, the more you can expand and really get very detailed. But the idea behind this little presentation is just to start to give you some of the nuts and bolts. So with that being said, we're going to move into the idea of how I use Vectorworks for theatrical purposes. And I'm going to turn off these various these various layers, and we're going to go into the theater itself. And I want to go to scenery. So here are another set of layers. Again, this is one of the reasons why I love using layers so much, because I can just turn things on and off when I need to. Here we have an example of a basic set. It's a white model. Let's go to OpenGL. It's a white model of a set. Oop, where's the masking? There we go. And it gives us an idea of, or this will hopefully give you an idea of how I use Vectorworks to start to figure out how to generate a lighting plot. Okay, now this is where I go into figuring out all of the nuts and bolts and generating the paperwork needed in order to hand these things off to my electricians and the crew to get things done. We're going to start with the idea of creating lighting positions. Why? Because you need a lighting position before you can hang a lighting fixture. Very different, again, than the conceptual that we were just in, where we just place a light anywhere. As you can see, I have a few lighting a few lighting positions already in place. A balcony rail, a second, a third, and a first AP. We're going to create 2 electrics as well. Now, with Vectorworks 2014, one of the great things that they've created is this lighting pipe feature. And just like drawing a line, you have all of these different options to make the lighting pipe straight or curved, or really customize it however you want. So clicking here, we're just going to drop an electric in right here. So clicking once to start, clicking again to finish, and clicking again to terminate there. In our Object Info palette, one of the things that I really, really love is the fact that we have the option for these tick marks, these hash marks here, which can be set at any dimension you want. So for example, right now, again in the Object Info palette, we see that I have them set on 1'6" centers, which is pretty standard for certain theaters. You can adjust those however you want. You can actually have them centered on various things, and you have the option for a lot of customization here. Before we do anything else, let's go ahead and draw one more. We'll put another electric right here. Okay, but they're not lighting pipes yet, or at least not practical enough for what we want to do. Now, in order to make these practical for our purposes, we actually still need to convert them to lighting positions. Even though they are a lighting pipe, to get some of the record information we need to convert them to lighting positions. To do this, you go to Spotlight in the pull-down menu, Object Conversion. So you highlight the surface, you highlight the object, go to Spotlight, Object Conversion, Convert to Lighting Position. And we get a dialog box that pops up that wants you to name the position. First, we'll call it First Electric. And we'll do the same thing with what is going to be the second electric. Exactly. Convert to lighting position. Okay. Now, this is going to be extremely helpful down the line. Now, again, we still need to, because we're working in 3D, and as you see when we switch to 3D, that gives us, it looks like it's actually a lighting batten or a pipe. We still need to set the Z height for each one of these each one of these positions. We'll start with the first electric, and I'm going to go to the Object Info palette, and I'll set this Z height at 20 feet. And I'll take this one, second electric, and I'll set this at 18 feet. So we can see that it's represented when we do our flyover, and we can actually see that we have the heights according to what we've asked them to be. Now here comes the fun part. When it comes time for hanging fixtures, again, I love Vectorworks for the fact that it does all of the work for you. Under the resource browser, you can come in, we'll use the lighting etc, okay, so under the files you can go lighting etc, and I should stop at this point and say if you don't have these under your favorites, all of these presets here, as a theatrical lighting designer, my favorite presets are all lighting related, you can still find these options under Vectorworks libraries, okay? I just happen to take the Vectorworks libraries and put them into my favorites. So again, under Lighting etc, I'm going to go to the Graphical folder, because that's just my style, the way I tend to draft. By double-clicking on my source for 26-degree fixture, I can now place my fixture onto the pipe itself. And I can tell you I already made a boo-boo. Before I go too far, I can tell you that I'm working in the, oh, I'm in the right layer. Never mind, I'm in the right layer. Except for these are not in the right layer. Oops, got ahead of myself. So if you actually run across this issue, if you're kind of a layer freak like myself or a layer Nazi, you can always click on your objects, and then in the Object Info palette, under Layer, you can change the layer to whatever you need it to be. Okay, but we are in Lighting Fixtures, as you can see here. I just dropped a lighting fixture in. So now back to what I was saying. By simply placing a lighting fixture, I'll do it again, double-clicking and placing a lighting fixture onto the pipe, clicking once to set it, and then setting the angle, and then clicking a second time, what this does is it automatically hangs the lighting fixture on the pipe. Notice the Z height of this particular fixture is at 20 feet, the same Z height as the lighting fixture, or the lighting position itself. To verify that, you can see, or maybe you can't, let's see here, you can see that the fixture has been hung on the pipe. Now, this is one of the features that Vectorworks does so well when you convert something to a lighting position. The other thing that it does really well, clicking on the lighting position itself, in the Object Info palette, we have the Insert Position Summary tool. And by clicking here, where did it go? Well, let's do it on this one. Oop, don't you hate it when things don't work right for you? What did I do wrong? No, don't do that. Let's do it on this one here. So we'll set something on the first AP. And by clicking on, oh, I bet you I'm not in the right layer. That's what it is. I'm not in the right layer. Oop. Technical difficulty. Give me 1 second here. Right now somebody's going, oh, you forgot to do this, dude. And I'm saying, nope, yeah, you're right, I did. Well, for some reason it's not doing it at the moment, but normally what happens is by simply clicking on your first electric, that's embarrassing, by clicking on the electric and then clicking on Insert Position Summary, a dialog box actually pops up and it will give you the full inventory. As I continue to talk, I'm sure I'll figure out exactly why that happened the way it did. The other option that you have, though, is the fact that you can click, as I just did here, the Auto Number tool. Now, the Auto Number, as you see here, automatically numbers the fixtures on your pipe. Very interesting. But now the question is, how do you get to rendering with these fixtures so that you can actually see beam angles and field angles and understand shutter cuts and things of that nature? Well, let's drop a few more fixtures in. We'll do that on the first electric, or the first AP here. And I'll show you exactly how we can do that. In order to do this, we're going to go to another layer, which is going to be the focus point layer. And we're going to use, again, I did that in the navigation window. And under Spotlight, under the tool sets, we're going to use the focus point tool. Clicking on it and then dropping a focus point in, clicking once, you can name this focus point. Clicking OK, and then clicking again, and clicking again. Now what this allows you to do is actually assign focus points, focus areas, or focus points to your lighting fixtures. And you can do this by simply clicking on your lighting fixture, going to your Object Info browser, under Focus, which is all the way at the bottom, and you can select or type in where you want it focused. A, we'll do another one, B, and the last one we'll do is C. Okay, so we've actually focused the lights. Now let's turn them on. To do that, simply right-click on the fixture, select Turn On. We'll do it again. Oop, I haven't gotten to that yet. Here we go. We'll turn it on, and we'll turn this one on. Now, before we get any further with this, we're also going to grab all three fixtures, and we're going to add a gel to it. So under Color, by grabbing all three fixtures, under Color in the Object Info palette, we're going to select, let's say, Lee 202. Okay, now we're ready to see. So we're going to go to our camera view, and we'll go to Fast RenderWorks. And as my computer, there we go. So there we have it. Now we see three beams of light that are focused on those 3 points. Now you may be thinking, well, but I don't want to see those focus points because that's the shadows that we're seeing here. You can simply turn off that layer, and as my computer re-renders, the focus points go away. Again, this is why I do layers for everything. So we'll wrap this up by showing you some interesting things with paperwork. The idea of using third-party software for lighting plots is brilliant, and it's become industry standard, and I think it's wonderful. However, Vectorworks also offers the same type of feature, and I tend to find it a little more convenient from time to time. So what we can do is under Spotlight, under Reports, we can generate paperwork. Here, what you can do is start to generate, or not start to, but you can generate instrument schedules, channel hookups, all these different things, and you can even set them up in various ways and configurations. You can even generate inventory reports, magic sheets, cut lists, you name it. For now, we're going to stick with the channel hookup. By just clicking there and then clicking OK, what we get in the resource browser under the file that we're working on, all the way down at the bottom, under Worksheets, is our channel hookup. So again, just to review that before I show this to you, go to Spotlight, Reports, Generate Paperwork, select the appropriate Click OK, and then it will give you, in the resource browser, all the way at the bottom under Worksheets, it will give you the appropriate channel hookup or report you need. Now to access that, simply double-click on it. It will drop into your document. You can move it, and you can view it here, or you can double-click, and you'll see it in Excel format, and it gives you all the options you need and allows you to modify things. Now the exciting thing about this is that when you modify something here in this Excel sheet, it actually updates automatically on your lighting plot as well. So that's just a quick example, a very, very quick example of how I like to use Vectorworks Spotlight for the conceptual as well as for the practical needs that serve me best as a lighting designer.
Fantastic. That was really illuminating, Stephen.
No pun intended.
Not at all. So I guess we're still have time for a couple of questions. Would you like me to read them to you? Did you get them? I assigned them
sure.
to you. Okay. If you can read
please.
them yourself.
Actually, if you don't mind, let me see.
Okay, I will read them to you.
Yeah, please do.
The first one was, what video card is Stephen using?
A slow one.
Okay.
I wish I could answer that question for you. I honestly don't know. I'm in my office right now, and my IT people take care of all that. So it's one that I wish could be upgraded. If you have suggestions, I'd take one.
All right. I'm going to move on to the second question. This is a little longer. Okay. And the question is from Rick Grady. I render a lot of visualization for large ballroom-sized plenary events with stage, backdrop, seating, lighting, etc. I find using 2 and 4 bounce lighting options greatly increases overall computer rendering time. I'm on a Mac desktop with 22.66 gigahertz and 6 cores and 32 gigabyte memory. And have you found any workarounds for decreasing rendering time for large rooms?
You know, Rick, I wish I had. When I deal in more elaborate plots, obviously, than what we just saw here, I find, well, actually, here is the workaround that I have found. I will take that back. It doesn't increase the speed of your computer, but it does maximize more of the efficiency in Vectorworks. I find a lot of times I have resources, and if you notice it in my resource browser now, I have a lot of resources and textures that I'm not using. What I've discovered is that this takes up a lot of computing power, even if they're not being used. So there's a Purge feature that you can use, and it is under Tools. So by going to Tools and then Purge, again, that's going to Tools and then Purge, you can actually purge anything that's not being used in your document at the moment. It will keep in mind, if you intend on using it later on down the line, this may not be the best option. But usually by the time I'm at the point of rendering, I've kind of figured everything out. And this I found really helps out quite a bit. So hopefully it will help you as well.
And somebody is just curious about the black background, Stephen. Is that an option? Can you change, or is that you chose that in AutoCAD, sorry, Vectorworks, not AutoCAD, right?
That's a question I get quite a bit.
Okay.
The reason why I do this is twofold. One, I have old eyes, and the white background is too harsh for me. I started off as an AutoCAD user back when it was release 14, and the background was black. I do find, however, that in a theatrical setting, the light rendering works so much better. It seems to be cleaner and crisper. And how I do that is, let me see here, do I go here or here? Bear with me. I go under File, Document Settings, Document Preferences. I haven't done this in so long. Forgive me. I have to look for it here. It's under, oh, it must be under Display. Nope, it's in the other one. Under Vectorworks, Preferences, and then Display, you have the option for a black background. So simply by clicking there, it will give you the background. A lot of my friends and other people that I collaborate with use the white background, so it drives them crazy as we go back and forth. But again, it's just easier on my eyes.
Cool. It looks great. Another question goes like this. Stephen, who is your set designer, and are they using Vectorworks?
My scenic designer for this particular document you're seeing was me. I just mocked that up for the purpose of this webinar. I am a scenic designer as well, and I use Vectorworks. If I think I know where this question is going, and forgive me if I'm taking it in the wrong direction, a lot of scenic designers that I work with don't use Vectorworks. And there are options out there for being able to do quick renders on sets obviously if they are doing it on another computer program, be it SketchUp or AutoCAD. The other thing that I find quite frequently is scenic designers will work with the old-fashioned pencil and paper, which is fantastic. If you can get a PDF of it, you can actually import that PDF into your document and then do a quick rendering or a quick explosion or extrusion of the walls and such to help give you reference points when it comes to lighting things. Yeah, that would be a whole different webinar, I think, for me to go into that, but I don't think we have time for it. But
no, we don't.
Yeah. Hopefully that's the direction you were going in asking that question.
I think so. Okay, I have two questions back to back from Mahmoud. Can we import models with ready materials from other software, and can we get live reports and sheets from the conceptual lighting workspace?
Can you read the first portion of that again?
Yes. Can we import models with ready materials from other software?
With ready materials?
Yes, that's the question.
You know, my understanding is you can. Excuse me. I've done very little of it. But my understanding is under the file import, did he say import or export? Sorry. Did he ask to import?
He said import.
Import.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So under import, I've noticed that there are quite a few different options here that will allow you, even down to Rhino, different options that will allow you to import three-dimensional objects in. Hopefully that answers your question.
And the other part of the question is, can we get live reports and sheets from the conceptual lighting workspace?
You can. You absolutely can. And let me actually go back real quick. Actually, you know what? I'll just show you right here. So under palettes, there is a visualization toolbar here. Again, under Window, Palettes, Visualization, and this would apply even under the conceptual. Every lighting fixture that you have appears in this window. And so you can actually pull reports and generate reports from this. The other option you have, is to go under, where is it? Under Tools, where is it? Under Database. And if you play around in there, I apologize, I didn't get into this, but because it's a little complicated, but under Database, you can actually generate reports from there as well. And it will tell you how many lighting fixtures you have. I'm not certain that it gives you exact positions of those fixtures in relation to other objects, but I do know that you can import other data, and that falls into that BIM mapping and such that Vectorworks does so well.
Great. Can you quickly re-show for Mike how to turn on a light, liquid, etc. after placing in your drawing?
Certainly.
Is that possible? Okay.
Certainly. So very quickly, once you've taken your lighting fixture and you've placed it, simply right-click, and you get this pull-down menu, or this menu, and then select the Turn On. And I can just show you very quickly under Fast Renderworks. Well, actually, this hasn't been assigned to anything yet. The key is you have to remember that when you turn on the light, it actually has to be focused towards something. So, but essentially that's how you do it. So you would right-click, just to review, you'd right-click, turn on, but the first thing you'd want to do is go into your Object Info palette, and you'd want to adjust the focus to, say, C, and then there you go.
Great. And somebody's asking, do you use classes?
I do use classes. I use classes quite frequently when it comes to textures. So a great example of that would be, let me just get out of this. A great example of that would be the next step as the scenic designer for this particular show. I'm just going to go into OpenGL. To apply textures to the walls that you see here, I often use classes for that. Now I know other Vectorworks users will use classes the way that I use layers. I've just found it to be personal preference, but yes, I do use classes primarily for textures and for line weights. I should say that too.
That's very great. Thank you, Steve. And I think you answered all the questions and more. So we're going to wrap it up and say our goodbyes. And also, I have to let you know that you received a lot of great feedback during the webinar. So and everybody, you know, was rooting for you, and these attendees have been super supportive. So I'm going to go back to my screen and make myself the presenter. Let me know if you see my screen now.
I do.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye to everybody, and thank you for attending from the Novedge team. I remind you to visit our page at novedge.com and take advantage of the special promotion that we have on Vectorworks Spotlight 2014. Also, if you did not get enough of Stephen Jones, take inspiration from his design work directly from his website at stephensjonesdesigns.com. For information on the latest specials and new releases on a huge array of design software, join the Novedge network and like us on Facebook, Google+, or Twitter. A reminder that the upcoming webinar will be Solid Edge and their superior sheet metal design. If you missed something, and to rewatch today's webinar or previous webinars, check out the Novedge Vimeo or YouTube channel. There's a lot to choose from our incredible playlist. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great day. Thank you so much, Stephen, and have a wonderful rest of the day to you and to all the attendees.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, and to have a great show and a great career with both your work at Vassar College and your work on stage. Thank you so much.
Thank you.